Chris Cruz and Sting and Ric Flair and Ole Anderson says he won't throw the towel in. Flair says he will end Terry Funk. We'll get to the main event in a minute. I remember a few weeks ago, watching this as a fan, and I look at the footage from like 85 or 86, whenever the Four Horsemen joined up, and Ole Anderson looks like he fits. Fast forward a few years to 89. Ole Anderson doesn't look like he fits in there at all.
Yeah.
Is that just me, or what did you think?
No, again, you're look at those years you're looking at. Remember how I talked about everything's contemporary. You look through a contemporary lens. When Gene and Ole were part of the Four Horsemen, there was this, this very, very old school mentality approach from those guys. And Flair was like the new kid on the block, the new great worker. But by the late 80s, in large part because of WWF, business became far more aesthetic. And so, guys like Gene and Ole that were just these big, bruising, steelworker-looking type of guys, they weren't quite fitting anymore. And they were, Gene was the older of the two, but Ole by the late 80s was starting to creep up there in years. And suddenly you see this advent, we'll get rid of these guys, and here comes Lex Luger, and here comes this and that, and Tully and Arn, and that became the horseman that is so generally thought of, right? Like when you think of the horseman, it's that version of the horseman that you think of. Ole also was a huge influence in the office. And so, being on the road and being in the office, it's burning the candle at both ends. When you're out on the road, it's difficult if you're in the office, if you're the booker or, on the booking committee or whatever, because now you're out here just running the road day to day. It's pretty hard to call back, because back then again, before the advent of the ubiquitousness of cell phones, it'd be difficult to get back and forth. So what would happen was, as the crew would go on the road, the decisions of what would happen in the house show matches were allegedly made in the office that week or two prior, and then divvied out and going back. And we had talked before about where there was a separation. Suddenly out in the field, things were changing from what the office wanted. This is where the brain had become disconnected from the body in WCW. And so we sort of had this renegade rolling of the company out in the field. And to cover their asses, when they would get back, they would say, oh, well, Shane Douglas wouldn't do this or that, or this person wouldn't this or that. And, give the mea culpa, and guys like Jim Hurt or whoever was in charge at that time weren't quite so well versed in that. Ole, his stint as booker there was not that long-lived, because he was trying to, like we've joked about before, like if Bill Watts, as much as everybody knows I respect him, if he were booking today, doing those things now, there'd be lawsuit after lawsuit and, a whole lot of bad press. Ole was the forebearer of that. He was trying to do what happened, treat the industry and the wrestlers like it was still the 60s and 70s. And we're now in the late 80s, getting ready to approach into the 90s. And he told me one time that he didn't know what I was complaining about with my $300 a night guarantee when I was with Ricky, because that's about what he made when he was that age.
He'd never heard of inflation then.
Yeah, apparently not. Right. So,
jeez. When I was looking at Ole, as I say, back in 85, he looked like the grizzled old veteran, but by 89, Ric Flair's the veteran, and the younger guys around him, like Sting, like in this time frame, Sid and Barry Windham and Lex Luger. And and basically Rick and Arn are the veterans, and then you've just got this guy who looks about 60 in Ole, and probably the attitude of someone born in the 1800s, quite frankly.
Right.
In that sense, so that one just stood out to me, and I actually brought this up as well on the web here as well.
Freeze for one second. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, please.
There was one thing I wanted to mention about the promo with Ole.
Yeah.
For the fans out there, and hopefully pretty much everybody here is, when you're going back and watching that, listen close. Those promos aren't just blocks put in the center there to fill up some time, right? They'd much rather fill that time up with action or whatever. But when those old timers like Ole would say something like, I guarantee I'll never throw the towel in.
Yes.
That little quip. I knew right there that they were going over, because there's no way those guys, it came from Bruno to me in the sense, the way he verbalized it to me was never promise something you're not going to deliver. So just the franchise cheat key to watch it leading into matches.